And here we go with Unit 10 Imperialism. This unit kind of picks up where we had talked about earlier with mercantilism, how the mother countries of Europe exploited the weaker countries of Africa, the Americas, and Asia. And it kind of accelerates once industrialization strikes across Europe, as well as the United States. It kind of becomes a land grab for colonies and power, and making each country much, much richer. All right, so imperialism, real simply put, is a policy of extending a country's power and influence through diplomacy, meaning negotiations, military, and economic force. Generally, imperialism is a stronger country taking advantage of a weaker country. Let's see. Industrial nations in Europe needed natural resources and markets to expand their economies. And again, we talked about that relationship of the mother country and the colony way back during exploration with the idea of mercantilism. And again, a lot of these European countries were technologically superior. They had navies, they had weapons that fired bullets, whereas the people they were going up against were not quite as developed, which gave them a distinct advantage when it came to, forcing them to surrender and be a colony. These nations competed to control Africa and Asia in order to secure their own economic and political success. Colonies meant power and success. Imperialism spread the economic, political, and social philosophies of Europe throughout the world. So again, as imperialism spread, as the European countries staked their claim to different places, their cultures and ideas spread with them. Resistance to imperialism took many forms, including armed conflict and intellectual movements. Okay, and remember, language. Okay, like there's a high degree of English-speaking people in South Africa because England settled that. Anyway, so causes of imperialism. I got a little ahead of myself here. Resources and markets, industrially produced goods flooded colonial markets and displaced traditional industries. So your traditional economies where people might be bartering and trading were replaced with, hey, here's some European manufactured goods, sell these instead. Okay. Why did it start? Nationalism. I'm getting kind of ahead of myself here. Nationalism, rivalry with other nations for colonial possessions. European economic, military, and political power forced colonized countries to trade on European terms. So because the Europeans were stronger, they had weapons, they could force them to trade, or things would get ugly. Okay, kind of like they put the gun to the head of the colonists of the countries they were colonizing and said, hey, do business with us or else. So Industrial Revolution, again, the need for resources, and hey, let's take these finished goods and sell them to our markets. Okay, and most of those markets were in the colonies. So again, colonies meant money, meant power, meant access to resources. All right, nationalism, again, extreme pride, more colonies equal more power. And again, with this rise of nationalism, all right, if you considered yourself to be a fantastic country or a wonderful country, you had to have colonies to back it up. The more valuable, the better. And then another cause was religion, Christian missionaries. Okay, which kind of could be the idea of the white man's burden. Okay, that it was the Europeans' way, it was their duty to spread Christianity. We have to civilize these people. These people are savages. It's our duty, it's our burden, if you will, to take these savages and turn them into civilized people. Okay, and again, that promoted a lot of racist ideologies within the colonies that Asians, Africans, people in the Americas weren't on the European level, okay, that they weren't as good as, okay. And again, this idea of paternalism, natives are infants and the Europeans have to care for them because they don't know how to do it themselves. Okay, and you can see this kind of, you got Uncle Sam, the British, okay, carrying the Asians, the Uncle Sam's carrying the Latin Americans, the Hawaiians, the Cubans to civilization, okay, which kind of ignored a lot of the culture and traditions and beliefs of the people that they were kind of trampling on. All right, forms of imperialism. You had a colony, which is a country or region internally controlled by a foreign government. That's your most basic form of imperialist control. You had the protectorate, which is a country or territory with its own internal government that is controlled by an outside power. So a protectorate basically can run itself, but they are... What? So protectorate is controlled by an outside power. So you can kind of run your country how you want, but you are closely watched and guarded by that country, imperial country. Spheres of influence. An area in which an outside power claims exclusive rights or trading privileges, which we talked about earlier briefly when we talked about China. Okay. All right. So and these are just some graphics that can kind of show the ugliness of imperialism. All right. Usually, again, most people, especially nowadays, do not go willingly. Okay. Back in World History 1, we talked about how empires treated people well. That tradition was not continued as people progressed and we got closer to modern times. All right. And again, we're saving the people, we're helping them, we're improving their lives. Okay, this is a good, cool graphic here. All right, imperialism in Africa. All right. By 1914, the continent of Africa was almost entirely controlled by European imperial powers. You can see that on the map here. Africa was diced up, sliced up by France, Britain, Germany, Spain, Italy, Belgium, Portugal. Those were the leading powers that saw fit to cut up Africa to its will. All right, and here you go. Good political cartoon here. These powers look to control the economy, society, and government of the conquered peoples. In the Berlin Conference in 1884 to 1885, regulated European colonization and trade in Africa during the new imperialism period. And they divided Africa among European nations. And unfortunately, when they did this, African tribal boundaries were ignored, which would be a big thing later on when Europeans kind of just, the independence movements after World War II really create problems. Okay. Here again, you can see some of the vision of Africa. Here's another map. And okay. And then the last part of it is another part of Africa, all the way over on the eastern Mediterranean, southeastern Mediterranean, and that is the Suez Canal. The canal was built to link the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. For obvious reasons. It was built in 1869 with French money. The Egyptians and France were partners. By 1875, Egypt needed some money, so they sold their share to England. And despite the voluntary sale, Egyptians grew angry and rebelled over the foreign presence. And by 1882, Egypt becomes a protectorate of England. So Egypt is allowed to, again, operate its country here, but and you can see Egypt is right here. Here's the Mediterranean. Here's the Red Sea. But they are under the control of the English. Okay, and you can see on this map up here. Okay, and obviously it's a shorter route, which again saves time and money, which is important if you're a country that colonized places, because that's more profits for you. So the Suez Canal is also a big time saver for transportation of finished products and resources to and from, but it's also a strategic location. The British kind of control this access, so that gives them a good deal of power in this region. And sometimes imperialism is not necessarily about resources. Sometimes it's about access, proximity to threats, who has an ideal location that they want to control. And again, it connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea and is a faster trip to the Asian markets. So you come to the Red Sea here, whoop, and you're over here into Asia. All right, you look at this map, come down through here. Here's Asia, India, China, and all those. And here is a more modern photograph, if you will, of the canal, much like the Panama Canal. Okay, man-made, to again connect two larger bodies of water. All right. Okay, so that's it for part one. Read back over those. Make sure you understand them. Where I'll do part two next class. Again, read over your notes. Possible quiz. Can't say yes, can't say no. Might be a surprise. So, see you then.